Hello, my name is Mani and welcome to my channel. Today I have decided to show you all the series I'm currently in the middle of reading. There aren't actually that many, I don't think, which is mostly due to me being okay-ish at finishing series and amazing at deciding to not continue one. I almost never DNF a book, but if a series doesn't catch me, then it's over. For those of you interested in the statistics, there are 18 series that I'm currently reading. The first series I'm currently in the middle of is Lockwood Co by Jonathan Stroud. Pretty much the only middle grade I've read in like years. I've read the first one in the series, which is called The Screaming Staircase. The series is set in an alternative version of this world, except there have been appearances of ghosts for about 50 years, and only children or young teens can see these ghosts, so they find work by getting rid of these. And in the first book we are introduced to Lucy, who is looking for a new job in London. She's fleeing her old hometown, and she finds work at this very small business that is owned by another child. Together with a third companion, they start fighting ghosts. However, they also have to deal with humans. The first young adult series that I want to continue with is the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard. This is about Mare, who finds out that in a world where there are reds and there are silvers, she thought she belonged to the reds, who are the commoners and the poor people, and then suddenly she finds out that she actually has these powers that would make her a silver, and then the royal family decides to act like she's a lost princess. It's been a while since I've read this. I've also read the second one. I should probably reread these before I continue them, but I still want to continue. The second young adult fantasy series that I want to continue with is the Traitor Circle series by Aaron Beattie. I own the German copy of the first book. In English it's called The Traitor's Kiss. The title of the German version would translate to Trust and Treachery, which I also think is a great title. I also got this a long time ago, so I don't remember much. I know that the protagonist was supposed to spy on some brides-to-be. These girls didn't know who they were about to marry, and the protagonist was an apprentice for this job, where they matched brides and grooms of noble families together. But because there were hints of a war coming, she was recruited to spy on these girls. The young adult science fiction series that I want to continue are the Skin books by Alice Broadway. These are about this world where people get tattoos to tell their life story, and the protagonist wants to become a tattoo artist. After death, the skin is made into books so that your descendants can read your story. However, when the protagonist's father dies, she finds out that part of his story has been erased, and she tries to figure out why and what criminal deeds her father could have done. The next series is the Greatcoats series by Sebastian de Castell. In this world there was a rebellion against the king who has died, and his special guard, the Greatcoats, have been disbanded. The books each follow one of the Greatcoats, and each has been given a last mission by their king. I have only read the first book in the series, and while I sometimes thought it was a bit confusing, I do still want to continue it. Then we have the Books of Chaos series. Apparently that's what it's called. I thought it was just The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is the first book, and I also do own the prequel, but I haven't read that one yet. This is a political fantasy. It's about a monarchy, and the queen still hasn't produced an heir. This is a matriarchy, if I remember correctly, but there has been no child at all. And then there's also this female warrior. There are several characters that I liked a lot, but especially the poet. I like poets in my books. It's a fun read. It looks very big, but you fly through it, and I am very much looking forward to the prequel. The Bloodsworn Saga by John Gwynne is set in this kind of Nordic feeling world, which is why I want to continue reading the series in winter. This also follows several characters, and I don't remember a lot once more, but I do already own the second one, and I did see that it entails a what has happened so far section. In this world, certain people can go berserk, which means that they develop this rage and then have different kinds of powers. Some get very strong, some get very fast. We follow several characters. Some of them seem to have this power, some of them apparently do not. If I remember correctly, the 3 points of views have not yet met in the first book, so there are essentially 3 different plots going on. I do remember that there was one specifically about a woman who lost her child that I liked a lot, and I am hoping to see more of her in the next one. The next series I want to continue is the Farseer Trilogy by Robin Hobb. I own the first and the second one in 2 different editions, and then the third one I actually own in this one as well. This is about Fitz, a bastard of the late heir to the throne. As far as I remember, he was the heir and did die. Maybe that's wrong. But he is thrown into this royal family, but he's also not really part of it because he is a bastard. And some of his family seems to accept him and some doesn't. And so to be useful to this family, Fitz is trained as an assassin. And of course, if I'm reading a Robin Hobb series, I also have to read a Brandon Sanderson. I am in the middle of the Mistborn series. This is book 2. The first one is currently at a friend's place. In this world, people can swallow certain metals to gain certain abilities, and then there are people who can swallow every metal and therefore gain every magical ability there is. These are called Mistborn. When our protagonist grows up among thieves, she's an orphan, and then she's found by Kelsier, a Mistborn. Kelsier wants to overthrow the current emperor and also free the Scars, who are essentially slaves. He also teaches Vin in the ways of the Mistborn, because Vin, as it turns out, is also a Mistborn. The next series is the Fallen Gods series by Hannah Kana. In this series, gods are created by being believed in. So if people pray to a god or if they build them a monument, then this god will come into existence. And gods have been forbidden. One of the protagonists, Kissen, who lost her family as a young child, is a god killer, so she takes care of the gods that do come into existence. Until she meets a god that seems to be bound to a little girl, and she can't get rid of him because she's afraid of killing the girl in the process. And then there's also this knight who wants to help his best friend, the king, with an oncoming war. And these 3 people, the knight, Kissen, and the young girl, meet and decide that they want to try to get rid of the god that is bound to the girl. However, this is not the only problem they have, because there's also treachery coming. This contains a found family trope, except in this case there is an actual child in the family. We have arrived at the adult science fiction part. The only adult science fiction series that I'm reading at the moment are the Murderbot Diaries. These are novels about this artificial intelligence that has been created to kill. However, this Murderbot has hacked its own software, something the scientists aren't allowed to know, but it all comes to a head when they are attacked. We continue with historical fiction. The first one was written by a German author, but this has been translated into English, at least the first 3 have. It's the Waringham Chronicles, written by Rebecca Gabri, and this follows the fictional Waringham family throughout the centuries. I think it begins in the Middle Ages and goes on into the Renaissance, and while the family might be fictional, a lot of the events that are happening in here have actually happened. The author, I think, is very well at researching facts for her books. You always have a part in the end where she explains what she might have changed. There's also always a list of the people in these books with a note next to it if they actually existed. And then there's also a timetable of the events happening at the end. The next series is by the same author, however this one was not translated into English as far as I know. This follows Otto the Great, who was a German, well, not German, I think he was Saxon. Germany didn't exist back then, but he is a very prominent figure in our history, and so Gabri has also written a series about him and his family. Then I'm also reading the 6 Tudor Queens series. I've only got the first book in this one. Each book follows a wife of Henry VIII of England, and I think there's also a 7th book which follows Henry himself. So the first one is obviously about Catherine of Aragon, and then the second one that I want to read next would be about Anne Boleyn. The last historical fiction series that I'm currently reading is the Cathedral of the Sea series by Ildefonso Falcones. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. This first book follows this young boy called Arnau, who starts working in Barcelona as somebody who has to carry these big stones to build this cathedral, and essentially the whole book and the whole plot is somehow centered around this church that they are building. The only crime series that I do want to continue with is the Shetland series by Anne Cleeves. I think this is the 7th book in the series, but you don't have to read them in order. This is one of the few crimes that I've ever actually liked. I'm not the biggest crime reader, but this one just had fantastic characters. In this one, a young family moves to the Shetland Islands, but their nanny is killed, and then there are rumors of a possible affair of the nanny and the father. The detective is obviously trying to figure out who's responsible for the death of the nanny. I'm also reading the Arsène Lupin series by Maurice Leblanc. This is a French series which Leblanc started writing in 1908, I think. It's about this gentleman thief. Sometimes it's compared to Sherlock Holmes, except we don't follow a detective, but a criminal instead. The last series I'm reading is also the only graphic novel series, called Saga by Brian K. Vaughan. It has this kind of Romeo and Juliet-like romance of two people who fell in love, but their people are enemies. And when she becomes pregnant, they flee together to a different planet. The story is told by the child. I've only read the first 2 books in the series. I think there are 14 at this point. So I don't really know where it's leading yet, but I am enjoying it. And those are all the series I'm currently reading. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. See you soon.